Amazon Prime has to what many people would consider a very mixed bag when it comes to the quality of their films. For my money, I think it all depends on the directors that they hire for these projects, as it shows who really cares about telling stories and who are actually just doing it for cash. Unfortunately, even if someone goes out of their way to make something good, I feel studio and producer interference still get in the way, as the more watchable movies, at least the ones I've seen, tend to only be mildly enjoyable and at the very least good, which you could say is enough for a movie to be. At the start of this year, we're already given the movie I'm going to be reviewing today, called The Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew is directed by Ángel Manuel Soto. It stars Jason Momoa, Dave Bautista, and Jacob Batalon. The film follows estranged half-brothers Johnny and James, who reunite after their father's mysterious death. As they search for the truth, buried secrets reveal a conspiracy threatening to tear their family apart. The only real reason I even wanted to check this out was because of the pairing of Bautista and Momoa. I think the movie's marketing is really honing in on that for people to watch it, so I suppose they succeeded there. But how is the actual film itself? I'm going to start by talking about the performances, leading with Jason Momoa. Momoa is known for having roles in films like Dune, and most recently being in the Minecraft movie, where he was one of the very few highlights in that thing. I liked him in this. I think the direction of his career is definitely fun, how he's still able to maintain the action star exterior while having a great level of humor to his roles. For me personally, it has been really cool to see. He manages to sell every piece of dialogue he's given here, even if some of the lines he gets isn't all too funny. A good majority of the time he managed to at least get a chuckle or two out of me. Dave Bautista plays Momoa's brother in this. He's known for having roles in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and Blade Runner 2049. For most of the runtime in this, he has to be the more serious one of the duo, which is normal for these types of movies, having one straight man and one comedic one. Occasionally they try to give him some comedic moments, but something about the way he handles them here doesn't work all the time, which is a shame because in comparison, he is hilarious whenever he's in the role of Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Sure, during the action scenes, he looks more than capable of being in these situations, which led to these sequences looking believable. There is even a comedic moment towards the end of a well done action sequence. But I do unfortunately think that is more so down to performance association, as it did remind me of something that Drax would do in a movie. Jacob Batalon shows up in this for a little bit. He's known for roles in movies like Spider-Man Homecoming and Novocaine. Batalon is an example in this movie of someone who completely steals the scenes he's in whenever he's on screen. He's framed as the main comedic relief despite only being introduced halfway through the movie, and when he does a good job with the material he's given. He was definitely one of the more entertaining performances to be found here. Claes Bang portrays the villain in this movie. He's known for having roles in movies like The Northman and The Square. This guy is another character who shows up pretty late into the movie, but I'll give him credit to a certain extent. He makes his presence known, as he's able to do a decent job at making himself seem intimidating. I don't think he's a particularly interesting villain, but he definitely feels like a believable one for the type of story that this is. Speaking about story, I think I'm about ready to talk about that right now. This is another example of an Amazon Prime movie having movies about brothers in an action comedy. The other example that comes to mind is the movie Brothers, which came out in 2024. It isn't particularly a good movie, but this movie slightly reminded me of that for the reason that I believe Amazon could very much be specifically asking for these style of buddy comedies. This thing is pretty much exactly what you think it's going to be from the vague plot description I gave at the start of the video. It's somewhat a mystery, but the screenplay doesn't do too much to make it overly interesting to solve. You're basically solving the mystery at the exact same pace as the main characters, which at times can make the pacing a little sluggish. Speaking of the screenplay, I thought it was a little odd that for the sake of comedy, they basically make Jason Momoa's character racist. It's very light racism, of course, and it's played for laughs, but it does get a little head scratching when every time Jason Momoa sees someone of a different race, he spews out some reference to a character that matches the race of the person he's looking at. Like I said, it is light, at least he isn't hashing out slurs, but I don't know, it was certainly an odd choice anyways. There are occasions where towards the end of the movie, things do get a little bit predictable. I don't feel like going into spoilers and anything too specific, but it gets to a point where I was ready for this thing to wrap up, and there was still under 10 minutes left. However, during the third act, at least, I wasn't completely bored thanks to the next topic that I want to talk about, which is the cinematography. The cinematography in this movie was done by Matt Flannery, who's done cinematography on movies like The Raid and Apostle. Before I lose my train of thought, the first thing I want to mention is really right sequence during the third act, which contains a long unbroken shot that complements the action choreography really well. This happens another time in the first act when Jason Momoa's character is getting attacked by Yakuza members, and the camera work here is really well done. It's very quick without needing the overuse of cuts to make the overall feeling be too disorientating on the viewer, which for an action movie like this, which refreshingly can delve into some pretty gory territory, is good to see. This is the main highlight of the cinematography, however, as this is obviously where Flannery's talents shine, but the rest of the cinematography here tends to be a little static during the dialogue scenes, which obviously isn't the worst thing in the world, but can be a little bland from time to time. Next, I want to move on to the music in this. The original score was composed by Bobby Krilic. He's done music for films like Midsummer and Blue Beetle. A lot of the score in this manages to do a little more than the average action movie. There's a slight rock music inspiration throughout the runtime, which makes for an entertaining listen during the scenes they were in. I thought a lot of the needle drops that were put into this movie were even better sometimes, however. Most of the songs that were used in this were in the classic rock genre, which suited the personalities of the two main leads, and also helped my engagement for whenever they were used. I wasn't particularly surprised by any song choice though, as they were songs which have been used in many times before in countless different types of films. I feel like from what I was able to talk about in this movie, this might be a little short, but I did like this movie. It is exactly what it says on the tin, or in this case, exactly what the poster promises. It is a dumb, fun, predictable action comedy that doesn't have an insane interest in having anything important to say. If it was allowed to be released in the cinema, it would be a popcorn movie. The cultural stuff that this movie has is really nice to pick apart at, and I'm sure people that can relate to the culture will get a good kick out of it, as I feel like a good amount of representation is being presented here. I'm not going to overglaze this movie, of course, as I don't think it's anything truly exceptional. Like I mentioned, the screenplay isn't the strongest. There's a good majority of the time where half the dialogue in this are people just swearing. While I like Bautista's and Momoa's dynamic together, they do mainly just scream and swear at each other. This is something similar that happened in the last movie I reviewed, and I realize in saying that people are going to think I genuinely have a problem with swearing, and I don't, but fuck man, it just feels a little sloppy here at times, you know. I'm giving The Wrecking Crew 3 stars. The performances are okay at best. The particular standouts, like I said, are Jason Momoa and Jake Batalon. It's a very stylish action comedy that unfortunately doesn't always land when it comes to its humor. It is mildly entertaining throughout. At least I think that there's an element here where sometimes the film throws so much at you that it almost begs you not to look away from the screen. But sadly, some of the downtime never has anything too overly engaging for the viewer to fully invest themselves in, because at the end of the day, this film is basically just dumb fun, and that's okay. The movie can be watched on Amazon if you use that service, and while I did like this movie, fine enough. If you don't feel like getting a subscription for it, just pirate the movie.